Hello and welcome to 4TA. That's for the athletes, a platform specifically designed to talk about mental health for highly competitive athletes. We are bringing you exclusive interviews, content, and information of all things in that world. And today, I get the pleasure of interviewing a special friend of mine. We have Jon Sam. I was going to say Jonathan Sam, but I just can't. I've never called you Jonathan in my life. Uh, so we have Jon Sam here. He is a Sacred Heart University graduate, former Division I football player, and is currently an account executive at Salesforce. Jon, thanks for coming on to chat with me.
Mia, thank you for having me. This is definitely a topic that I'm passionate about, so I'm looking forward to sharing with everybody.
Oh, I'm so excited. That's so cool. We always talk about like the shit we go through as athletes, but we never really got the place to dive into it. So it's much needed because everyone's going through it. So ironically, Jon and I are both New Jersey natives, both grew up actually not far from each other at all. And you went to a very reputable high school. What
I
was,
did.
tell me about high school into college. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, so I went to Bergen Catholic in New Jersey, Bergen County. State champs back to back these past 2 years, so it's what they do. The thing about me that not too many people know, but it's different than a lot of college athletes. Is I started playing football in eighth grade, so I
I
really
didn't know
knew
that.
I knew nothing of the sort of the recruiting process, playing in college, what that would look like
Uh-huh.
until I got to Bergen Catholic and saw what a beast that was like, and like playing there
Yeah.
was kind of at the same level of playing at a college, the expectations
Yeah.
and the everything that you do to get there. Um, so I mean, from there, getting to college, I think once I learned it was a possibility, it's what pushed me to like work harder. I mean, naturally, I just loved playing the game, loved being out with my friends and doing stuff like that. But as I learned that, all right, this is a possibility. Like I could go to college and play this and have it pay for school partially or whatever
Yeah.
it may be. I'm like, all right, let me take this a little bit more serious and then ended up at Sacred Heart.
That's awesome. I had no idea you didn't start playing till eighth grade. Did you always love football and then you just kind of went for it then?
Always loved it. Grew up as a track athlete. My
Okay.
mom would always say no, no, because it's you're gonna get hurt. But I'm like,
Right.
just give me a chance. And eighth grade is when she was like, you know what, go ahead, go ahead.
That's awesome. Love it. So was it a combination of like the ability and the love for the game that it's like, yeah, I'm gonna try to go for it for college.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely. Being able to do that, just continue it. Like you're gonna continue your education. Why not be able to do something you love while doing that as well?
for sure. So for those of you that don't remember, I also graduated from Sacred Heart. So Jon and I went to school together. What made you choose SHU? Like what made you excited about Sacred Heart?
For me, it was close enough to home, but far enough away.
Exactly.
Close enough, but far enough. And it,
uh,
just the vibe. I didn't want to be a small fish in a big pond. I wanted to
mm,
be somewhere where I could make those long lasting friendships and have the
yeah.
opportunity to play early. So that all led into that decision.
That's awesome. Yeah, you don't want to be just a number. I remember looking at schools. I walked into, I think it was University of Maryland. I was just like, one, I'll never go to class. Two, I don't. Where do you sit in here? Uh, no, that's awesome.
Work.
Okay, yeah, yeah. No, it was a great experience. So I think for any college athlete, right? We all have our ups and downs. We all have the high moments and the lows. What were some of your highlights from being a college athlete? Like, what are some of the things that just put a smile on your face, or that you look back and it's just like, ah, good old days.
The friendships, honestly, like being
Hmm.
going to practice, everyone knows like you don't want to go to practice, you don't want to get up, but when you live with the guys that you're going to practice with and going to battle with, as they say, it makes that process easier
Hmm.
to want to get up and want to get to the workouts with the guys that you become friends with and now family with, you know.
It's so true. It's so true. It makes it such a different experience. That's where you get your groomsmen from, right?
So you get your groomsmen, your friend, like everything you
Yeah.
get from teammates.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So definitely the connections that you've built that obviously are still very near and dear to you.
Of course, man.
Yeah.
These are my brothers.
Yeah, truly. What about some of the lows?
Of course. I mean, for me personally, anyone who's friends with me and knew me and played with me knows that injuries are what kind of just took over once I got to college, whether it was a torn
Hmm.
hip, a torn quad, hamstring, whatever it
Yep.
is. And that's what, I don't know, it was always hard to bounce back. Your body's ready, but when it comes to you getting back out there and trying to do the same things that you used to, your brain tells you that you're not ready, and you don't
Mm,
realize that it's telling you that, and you keep trying to do those things, and it's just those two things aren't coming together, and
yeah.
that kind of that was those were my biggest lows, just the constant injuries and not being able to bounce back from.
It just feels to be. I remember we had similar experiences in that way. So it like we talk about physically what you're dealing with, and no one ever talks about mentally what kind of toll that takes on you, and you never get any kind of support or help with that. So what was the remind not to like put salt in a hopefully a closed wound, but not to rub salt in, but what was the injury process like for you throughout college? Because you had a couple big ones, right?
Had a couple. So going into my freshman year, so my senior year of high school, I ran track.
Yeah.
Ended up pulling a quad, which turned into a torn hip, but did rehab, was able to
Mm,
come in and start practicing. And then one practice freshman year, running down on kickoff, pop, hip is torn, needed labrum surgery in my hip.
okay.
So that year's done. Freshman year is done. Sophomore year, I come back, feels okay, but everything around it wasn't as healed. So I had injuries here and there, hamstring, quad, and then my third year, I ended up doing the same thing to my hip and just opting to not get surgery. Back then is when they were just like releasing, all right, PRP injections, like this will
Right.
help faster.
That's right.
Like I'm like, I'm young. I can't have two hip surgeries before I'm 21 years old. So
God.
just kind of tried to work through, and it just never ended up getting back to what my body was used to being able to do. And a
Mm,
lot of it, when you look back, it's like, okay, well, maybe I could have, but I just never got that kickback.
yeah. Yeah. So whether it was with injury or otherwise, because we know there are plenty of other factors, how do you feel like your mental health was impacted? And when I talk about mental health, right, I conceptualize it as like we all have mental health like we have physical health. It's just the status of your well-being in that area. We all have a mind, we all have a mentality. And as an athlete, it's just so important. You can be
Yeah.
as talented and as skilled as the day is long, and if you have those blocks, it's not for shit. Like you have those shutdown moments, or to your saying, like a huge part of a recovery, whether it's getting your starting spot back or coming back from an injury, that's a huge part of it that no one really talks about. It's starting to get talked about a little bit now, but I feel like that's where it ends a lot of the time. It's just a discussion. So for you, how do you feel like, and maybe in positive ways too, how is your mental health impacted throughout being a college athlete?
And to be honest, I knew nothing about my mental health or even that I should be thinking
That's
about it from
fair.
that aspect when I was in school. I can talk about it now and understanding, okay, this is why such and such happened or why I couldn't go back to this level because
Hmm.
mind was telling me that I couldn't, even though my body might have been able to do it. And as athletes, we're taught to kind of ignore minor physical
So
ailments
true.
through, so it naturally kind of pushes itself into mentally too. Like, oh, why am I feeling like this? Nah, I'll get through it. I'll get through it.
That's so true.
We should be talking about it and saying, oh, like, this is what's going on. Like, what should I do, or how can I resolve this issue that's coming on? Versus,
Hmm.
nah, you're all right. Just ice it. Like it's not something that can just be masked with Tylenol or
No, it doesn't just go
ice.
away.
It's gonna be there until you actively try to make it better.
No, that's so true. That's such a good point. And at that age, it's like half of you feels invincible, half of you just assumes anything you're going through is the norm. It's just like how you're supposed to be feeling. So that's such a good point. Yeah, mental health. God, I mean, what are you, like 18 to 22 years old when you're in college? So yeah, that's such a good point. You don't even think of that most of the time, probably. So looking back then, how would you kind of describe your experience?
Looking back, and what I would tell an 18 to 21-year-old me is it's okay to not be okay. It
Mm,
Ask for help in any situation, whether it's physical or mental. If you're not feeling like yourself, try to figure out why. Try to
yeah.
understand a little bit more about like what you have going on, or what makes you feel better in certain aspects of your life. That way, that when you go through it, you know how to handle it moving forward.
Do you think that would have helped your experience?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And for me, and again, like I said, it's hindsight's 2020.
For sure.
When you look back, you're like, I should have done this. I should have gone to the weight room more. I should have put in hours after practice without the team. I should have done this X, Y,
Hmm.
Z better. But and then you realize like I could have, but my mind was telling me I can't. Like I can't physically do it when you probably could have.
Yeah, that governor, right? It's like that limiting system, and it's there to protect us, honestly. But again, as athletes, I feel like it's either one where you go through these experiences where it becomes so limiting, where it's just like I don't know what's safe anymore because my whatever my body or even mentally, like some of the some of the things we deal with and endure from the coaches or school or whatever else. And then there's this other like pendulum swing of we don't listen to it at all. And that is when we get hurt or we overdo it or we're pulling the all nighters and we just don't know what's wrong and we crash.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I appreciate you saying like that's what you would say to your younger you. That's the whole point of this, not just platform in terms of like having the conversations, but a lot of the extension of this is going to be providing support. And I just think that's so important now. Did you feel like you got any type of, or you had any type of access to support in that world, like mentally?
If I did, I didn't know about it, or I didn't know where to look or who to go to.
That's
So
so
it's not.
true.
It may not. It might have been there, but it wasn't something where it was being talked about. Where like you get hurt, all right, you go to the training office. If you're not feeling yourself, go speak to XYZ who will help in mental health side of it. There wasn't that.
There
So
was not that.
if there was, I didn't know about it.
No, and I think too, like even having an extension of it be for athletes, 'cause every school has a built-in, counselor or something like that, but it
Yeah,
never matches the need of the school, right? And it's always like, oh, if you go talk to them, it's a one-off thing. It's not an ongoing support. There's not typically a relationship. I don't want to say always because I don't want to speak in ultimates because maybe there are programs that have that. But yeah, certainly
yeah,
we were not exposed to that. And I think, again, saying your mind and body are so connected, if you're hurting physically, of course that's going to impact you mentally. If you're pushing yourself physically, you also pushing yourself mentally. So that like I think just even anyone who's listening or schools or whatever, taking the step to if you do have that in place, let them know about it. Because
exactly.
one, there's it's probably not. And two, if it is, they have no idea and you just don't know who's having those experiences. And it's just part of like I think about what you're going through in general. Forget adding another job as being a college athlete to what you're going through at that time, but just
Yep,
going through that time of your life and being a college student, then add that. And then of course you're gonna want, yeah,
of course.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
all about keeping it top of mind so that everyone, like you said, if it's available, keep it as top of mind and as important as getting your workout in every day.
Yeah,
You
I love that.
They go hand in
Absolutely.
hand.
Absolutely. They truly do. So I know you said you'd kind of tell your past self. Is that the same advice you would give to current college athletes? Because I feel like now even more so, I mean, we're talking about just a little over a decade ago, which is crazy. But now, like I know. But
I don't
now
want to
there's
talk
so
about it.
much more exposure. I feel like there's even more pressure. Um, what would you tell the kids? They're not kids. What would you tell the athletes now that are in the trenches of this experience?
Be proactive in everything that you do.
Hmm.
whether it's asking for help in the classroom, asking for help in the weight room, asking for help with your mental health. Know yourself and be proactive about knowing every resource that you have out there so that when you run into an issue, because you're going to,
Yeah.
we think we're invincible, but we're going to run into issues, especially at that age. And we're going to be like,
Yeah.
oh, what do I do now? Now I'll just push. No, be proactive and understand all the resources that you do have uh, at your exposure and use them.
I absolutely love that because I feel like, again, especially in that stage of your life, everything's very reactionary as opposed to being proactive, whether it's like, okay, I'm, now I'm hurt, now I'll stretch, now I'll take care of myself and actually take time to ice. I feel like crap. Like now I'll actually go to the, like whatever, I'll eat normal for a couple days as opposed to God knows Merit Canteen. Um, or, yeah, like you said, like mentally not, I think that's something that's just like totally put to the side burner, but like being proactive, not waiting till you're not feeling right or not like you're not feeling like yourself to actually do some of that work. That's,
Preventative maintenance.
yeah, absolutely. It'll save you a lot of grief that we didn't get to save ourselves from.
Definitely.
I love it. Awesome. So any other just like thoughts or insights or thinking back on the experience, anything else, or does that kind of wrap it up?
That's honest. That wraps it up, honestly. But at the same point, like this is an amazing platform. I love what you're doing. It's something that like
Thank you.
I haven't started to really. I didn't tap into until like a few years ago when it's like
Yeah.
the pandemic hits and you're like, why am I feeling all of these things? Like why?
Yeah. Yeah. What the heck's
Just
going on?
talk about it, and that's where I would end off. Just talk about how you feel. It's okay to not be okay, and just keep that messaging out there for everybody.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It sounds like you've done a lot of personal growth. And I actually forgot to ask you this question. I want to because I know that you've been very successful after college. How do you think that, maybe building your own mentality or just the experience of being a college athlete has helped you after the fact?
Oh, discipline. 100%.
Discipline.
The discipline that is needed to. I work in sales, and it's grinding just as much as I
Yeah.
would if I'm playing football.
Yep.
You gotta know your product. You gotta know your clients. You gotta study. You gotta be prepared for your meetings. You gotta have your presentation
So
set.
true.
That's exactly the same to me, and that's how I approach it. Um,
Well, that's probably why you're so good at it.
I try.
But that's the thing. And that's why I wanted to ask because I feel like a lot of athletes that are in the trenches, it feels like, and honestly, at that point, it is everything. But knowing that, like, even if you're having a tough experience, it will help you tremendously in so many ways in these long-term things of just like you said, the discipline, the dedication, the process of just like the clarity and the competitiveness. That doesn't go away. We just find other ways to use it, honestly. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. If anyone wanted to connect with you further because they resonate with your experience or, sale or whatever, how would be the best way to reach you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Jonathan Sam. My Instagram, if you want, the_Jon Sam 28. Reach out. I'm happy to help any athlete and just be ears to listen to whatever's going on. I'm not a professional, but I got ears, so I can do that much.
Awesome. John, thank you so much for all of your spectacular insights and sharing your experience. Uh, we'll be seeing more of you soon.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.